Could you also just touch on what is a soul contract?
Okay, so a soul contract is a contract between two spirit being vessels, two spirit beings in the spirit world that have agreed on a certain lesson. So a spirit being contract would be, I agree with these two spirit beings who have projected onto this earth already that I'm going to incarnate into them as their next child. That spirit being, which is going to represent my father, and that spirit being, which is going to represent my mother, both have lessons for me. My father is going to teach me. He's going to reject me. He's going to abandon me. He's going to really treat me in a terrible way, which is going to trigger my lesson of self-worth, of overcoming abandonment and rejection. This spirit being, which is going to project as my mother, is going to teach me unconditional love. She's going to be a very loving being. She's going to be a very kind being, and she's going to teach me unconditional loving. So in my formative years, these two beings are going to set up a contract with me. I've set up a contract with them, and they're going to be the teachers. They're going to trigger my formative lessons, which I will then spend the rest of my life overcoming. My next soul contract will be perhaps with the person who's going to be my wife, and she's going to repeat the lessons my father taught me. So the lessons my father imprinted in me: rejection, abandonment, self-worth. I'm going to attract into my space this contract, this person, this being that I've had a spirit soul contract with, and that person is going to be my wife, and we're going to have a very happy marriage. And after year 4, she's going to have an affair, and she's then going to present me with the same sense of abandonment, rejection, and I'm going to have to overcome my issues of self-worth, which started in my formative years. When I overcome that, and I and that spirit being divorce, if I haven't fully learned the lesson, that spirit being is going to come into my life, and she's going to be my girlfriend or my next wife, and she again is going to reject me. She's again going to have an affair. She's again going to make me feel unworthy and have issues of self-worth. Except in this contract, having learned that I'm now repeating the pattern, I'm going to overcome this. I'm going to forgive her, realizing that when I forgive her, I forgive my ex-wife as well. And I forgive my father, because I realize I've set up the lessons in order to realize there's a better way. And through this experience, this sacred contract, I'm going to go on a spiritual path. I'm going to discover meditation. I'm going to discover non-duality. I'm going to discover neti, Advaita Vedanta, or the mystical Christian works. I'm going to discover the works of Ramana Maharishi, and I'm going to realize the self. And as I realize the self through the acts of forgiveness, which I've learned in A Course in Miracles, or Ho'oponopono, I'm going to forgive and realize there's actually nothing to forgive, because I've set this whole thing up. And in this process, I awaken. When we awaken in this life, what happens when we return to the spirit world, we no longer return and find ourselves as a separate self or a separate spirit being in the spirit world. The minute we awaken fully to the self here, as we return to the spirit world, we join with the awakened part of the mind, the awakened part of the dreamer's mind. And a one for another word in the awakened part of the dreamer's mind is what we call the Christ mind, or the anointed mind, the awakened mind. So a part of the sleeping Son of God's mind is awake. He's self-realizing. And for example, Jesus was the first to awaken and realize that he is the self, which is one with God. He is the Son of God, as we all are. And he tried to teach us the same process, to walk in his footsteps, not turn him into a God, but to learn and to become like him. As he would say, I am, and before Abraham was, I am, because I am is the essence of God in the Son of God and God. And so when we awaken to the self, we awaken to the realization we're simply having a dream and we've never left God. And so if we are, when and with which we will awaken in this life. Every single one of us will awaken in one lifetime or another. And there's a major awakening happening right now. COVID is perfectly designed for that, as we now searching within. And as we awaken to the self, when we find ourselves returning to the spirit world, we don't return as a separate self entity, but we return and dissolve and become one with the Christ mind. and all the history of all our past is dissolved, and we just know the self as the holy self. We awaken to this blissful joy, peace, and love that is the I am.